Welcome to Tales episode 31, I believe it is now. I thought we'd tackle the topic of racism. Highly sensitive subject, and it's an interesting pattern that maybe you've noticed component parts of it, but maybe not put the whole thing together, as it were. And it revolves around the theme of scarcity, coupled with that encouraged sense of attachment and belonging. So, for example, that would be nationalism and identifying with a particular nation. In the case of many, it will be the UK, and that sort of memory or story, shall we say, of this British Empire, this great successful enterprise that you're encouraged to feel a part of. But the reality, of course, is very much an illusion, because very few actually benefit from such a system or an organisation. And if you want proof of that, just look up union workhouses. What happened to the paupers, the poorest members of society, which it would seem most of them actually had will be classed as sort of indigenous with lighter colour skin. But the theme that often comes around periodically is often talked in terms of percentages. I seem to recall there was one with a prediction that blonde hair would die out by, I think, 2050. Then there's talk of red hair only being a very small percentage of the world population. Then there's the topic of blue eyes or green eyes. But the problem is, without having a true picture of figures of exactly how many people there are in the world, and as an example of this, take somewhere small, maybe a village, have a look at what the population is said to be, then go on Google Earth and do a little visual scan of dwellings and things and see if the thing equates. You could take somewhere like an island, so like Orkney Islands or the Faroe Islands, and see what the quoted figures are for the population, and then just have a look at the Google Earth. I mean, they're genuine images, are they not? And therefore it will show all the households and things from the air. You get an aerial view of everything, so it should be reasonably easy to work out the law of averages of number of people in each household and so on. I'll leave you to have a little play with that for yourself and see what you can come up with. So there's this, on one hand you've got this attachment that's encouraged, because everybody wants to feel they're part of a winning side, or have been part of something that is or was successful. But then when it's into decline, there's that sort of encouragement to defend it as well. But the thing is, it's no different from having a leaking roof and a sticking plaster solution to it. Yes, it might temporarily stop the leak for a while, but it's not dealt with the root of the problem, the source of why the roof is leaking. And the same applies with all these things. So the sort of opposite of the racism would, or the, as part of the whole racism thing, would be a sort of opposition to incoming people from completely different cultures, from completely different parts of the world. And I'm pretty sure those people can sense that they're not welcomed by certain parties within a host nation, which doesn't bode well anyway for sort of race relations, as it were. But the thing is, when is there ever any dialogue where you could actually speak to these incoming people and say, what story were you told about, and what were you promised for you to take this journey to come here, and how do you feel about the temperature? Is it what you expected? Do you find it too cold? It would be interesting to get a sort of an immigrant perspective on things. See, this whole system relies on lack of communication, lack of dialogue. The three ingredients for this cake in this reality, shall we say, because you can't have the cake and eat it, is the three ingredients are fear, ignorance, and superstition. Well, certainly the Abrahamic religions as told today certainly have that as central policy. But of course there's always a half-truth to these things, because otherwise, if they were too obviously repellent, then you wouldn't get people that would fall for these things. But such is life. Now, talking of Abrahamic religions, I've noticed there's a pattern to this. Now, of the three, so that's Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, you have a thing called the middle path. Now, one of them has Friday as their sort of holy day. Another one has Sunday as their holy day, and the third one, of course, has Saturday, the sort of the middle day between the two. So you can almost see this taking the middle path thing has even been taken to a whole new level with these Abrahamic religions. Now, a lot of people will be straight away put off by these religions, which I can understand why. Certainly, as far as Christianity goes, it doesn't make any sense the way it's told. See Alan Watts' video, The Impossible Religion, for further information on that. And yes, of course it won't make sense because it's been interpreted as a literal history, and it's not to be taken literally. It's a literary work, yes, but it's not a literal history. But like everything in this reality, there is a physical outplay of things. So it's basically like the handbook is like the story, the screenplay, or the synopsis that's played out every day. But another aspect of this reality is the way things are always twisted and come out in a sort of variation. So if we take on the spiritual side, lead by example, the system will interpret that and twist it into make an example of one that won't kowtow and follow the rules of the system, because the last thing the system wants is more sort of breaking out of it or inspiring others to break out of it. So they have to introduce this trauma bond and basically throw the legal book. As an individual, this is something Lana spoke about recently, Lana Elabonte, and it seems almost horrendous that people would actually be cheering based on a story that, oh, that person has been found guilty of whatever it is, and they're going, yeah, kill him, set fire to them, or that type of thing. And it's like, how do they know that story's even true for a start? And what the hell are they doing? They're sort of become these bloodlust, crazy, I don't even know what the word is, but they're sort of like defending and going along with the system's story. And that's exactly how this whole reality works. It's all about divide and conquer. So this whole sort of sticking plaster solution to things, it's like there's no good dealing with the outplay of anything. It's, if you want to change things, it's go to the source. It's always go to the source, whether it's in the positive way or looking at the negative way, and what is the source of the negative side of things, because that will have a source as well, and generally based on a truth. But at the same time, if these stories are told enough and enough people are convinced that they are real, that they will actually take on a kind of life of their own. So there can be things put in the outer stories that may inspire others. I think I used the example of an astronaut. Certainly that's quite a big pull for children, sort of, oh, when I grow up I want to be a spaceman, I want to go to the moon or whatever. So it takes on a story, it takes on a life of its own, regardless of whether it's true or not. It doesn't matter. And that's a lot of the time with these stories. It doesn't even have to be a basis of fact or any real evidence. And it's funny how people will defend these things, but going back to this whole scarcity thing, is like how few people have got blue eyes in the world, how few people have got blonde hair, and how few people have got red hair, for example. Well, do you really see any evidence of any one of those three categories actually going extinct? Because I don't. In the same way that I suggested a long time ago of the blood groups. You've got four basic blood groups, A, B, AB, and O. And then you've got your positive and negative to each of those. Now, if you take the smaller percentage ones, the thing is we're dealing in a realm where we don't know for definite what the true figure is for the world populations, which is going to make it difficult to even answer these things. But we'll go with the figures that are quoted. So if you take AB negative blood group, which is a very small fraction, what if there's suddenly no people with AB negative blood? And what I suggested a long time ago is you could have maybe 5 generations where there is nobody living in the world with that blood type, and then all of a sudden it will spring up again. It's something that is would seem to be very random and unpredictable, which I feel is built into the survival of it. I mean, you get this talk of, you get throwbacks, as it were. So you'll get a recessive gene which will suddenly come to the forefront, and as I understand it, there's been cases where you'll have two people and they have a baby, and the baby looks like it's a completely different race, completely different skin colour, because there's a recessive gene that's sort of become like a dominant gene. So again, this scarcity and lack thing, and there's also this false attachment to these isms and things. It's like, well, that's being played by the system well and truly, because it's like saying, pick a side, divide and conquer with all these things. But I've mentioned this before, and I shall mention it again. And ironically, it's a Walt Disney film. It's Young Merlin with Sam Neill, and the way they change things in that film. You've got the Lady of the Lake, and I think it's the Black Queen, played by Helen Bonham Carter, if I remember rightly. The people turn their back on these two characters, the old world, the old ways, as it were. So therefore, they're not giving any attention, no focus onto these things, and of course they just dissolve. They lose all power because they had no power. It's just illusion. Imagine if people actually did that with a lot of these stories that are put about, which generally all seem to be about scarcity or lack, or haven't got, or making you feel like, oh, I've got to have that, I'm missing that. And it's the carrot on the stick, effectively. But it's like, take a few steps back, and it's like, well, if I accept this script that's being offered, and I'm now going to play a part on the world stage in this storyline, I would use a bit of discernment and look carefully at the script and decide, do you really want to play in that game? Most of these scripts on offer, the only parts that are available are roles where you become a victim, or you have that feeling of lack. So do you want to incorporate that sort of thing into your reality, into your world? It's very easy to go along with what everybody else thinks, and it's like, oh no, I don't want to stand out from the crowd. But you've got to ask yourself, internalize the question of, it's basically that story of the king has no clothes, the boy that points out that he's naked on the horse, he's not got any clothes on. Whereas everybody else is like, oh no, I better say I can see the clothes because they've all said it, and what will people think of me if I'm honest and say he has no clothes on? But that the boy is representing the inner child. The thing that you should be most true to is within you. Because the irony of so many things, it's like the shape of the earth and that, and where's the edge is always the question that comes out of that. You're pretty much close to the edge, the solid reality, the limit of opacity. Is pretty much where we are, in this solid material reality. It doesn't get more solid than this, effectively, unless you become a rock. But just come into mind, rock star. That's a funny term as well, rock and star. I digress. Anyway, so if you think about you are a universe. It is you in verse. Now, what about your imagination? Where's the limit to that? Now, tell me which would you say is the greater in terms of like a physical space? How far do you feel you could go in this physical reality, as opposed to how far could you go from thinking of this as a physical perspective in your imagination? For example, say imagine yourself in your mind, and now how far can you travel? Or astral planing is another way of describing this. How far do you think you can go, or how far have you experienced going in that realm, as to how far have you gone in this solid material reality? Which then begs the question of who is the gatekeeper? Who is guarding the doorway between this solid physical reality and the non-physical reality? Now, when was the last time you visited the non-physical reality? When was the last time that you remember visiting the non-physical reality? I'll give you a clue. Roughly about a third of a 24-hour day you will be in that other reality. The one where the physical body and the etheric body stay here, as it were, and generally they will be horizontal, but the astral body and the eye organization are not going to be horizontal, and they're going to be very active. Whether you remember or whether you can wake yourself up in the dream is another thing as well. Certainly something at least worth pondering, I feel, and I can't tell you the answers on this one at all. I can't tell you how you're supposed to feel. And the only way you're going to know this is to maybe just sit and meditate, maybe just weigh up all these different things. It's interesting as well how the importance, how there's great stock put upon physical attributes of this physical reality. But then when we move across to the unseen realm, how the physical attributes somehow just dissolve and are no longer valid at all. Likewise, any of the isms, any of the belief systems suddenly seem to all go out the window. They don't seem to carry any weight in the sort of metaphysical realm, as it were. There's a few things here to ponder, and basically a lot of these things, it's like put them into the scenario of how many times has the world been predicted to be ending, and how many times has the world actually ended. There may be days where it feels like your whole world has come crashing down around you, but that's actually a good thing. It may not seem it at the time, but it's like everything else in this reality. That saying, what is sweet to the mouth is bitter to the belly. What is bitter to the mouth is sweet to the belly. So this is a realm of contrasts and duality, and again, I refer back to that analogy I've given of it's a fun fair, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of fun to many with it, and things don't seem to be fair either. But it's ended up where we would seem to be in the crazy house with a lot of distorted mirrors, and what a lot of people are looking at or reflecting upon is distorted images, generally by the media and the gossip and hearsay, which is heresy. Hearsay is heresy, and repeating scripts and things. Oh, I hear this has happened, or the government said we should do this, and it's like, well, do you really know that to be true? It's like, hand on heart, how many of these stories do you know to be actually true? Again, it's pretty much like with any Hollywood film, you'll have stunts, you'll have added realism to make the things look believable. And considering the world is really a stage, remember it has many trapdoors. It has a curtain. It has a veil. And you'll often, well, hopefully, if you see the thing all the way through, when the curtain comes back again, out will come the entire cast. You'll have the hero and the villain, and they both take a bow, and you don't boo the villain, you cheer for all the characters, if they played the thing well, and realise it's just a play. But the devil is in the detail is a very good saying, because it's very interesting. I've noticed this, how people will fixate on minute details and miss the bigger picture in the process. It could be a number or something, and it's a fixation on a particular number, and it's like, no, forget about the number, it's the actual story. Although saying that, there are things like passages in the Bible where there are specific numbers that do have a meaning, but that's a topic in its own right, like the 153 fishes, for example. I have explained that one once before. It's basically the one. You've got 5 senses which you can use internally or externally, and you have this trinity of mind, body and soul. So there's one explanation of the 153, and of course the casting the nets to the other side is basically referring to the 2 hemispheres of the brain and handing over the controls to what rests in the middle between the 2 hemispheres. Because the divide and conquer exists equally in the external as in the internal. The macro and the micro will often mirror each other. What goes on inside in your universe as opposed to the external universe. Look for the patterns in things, is my advice. There doesn't seem to be that many different patterns, but the patterns are repeated often. They're just slightly changed, different scenes, different eras, different actors and actresses playing the characters, and the characters may even get different names, but essentially the stories are exactly the same. There's a few things there to weigh up inside, and yeah, let me know in the comments what you think of any of this, and even share your own experiences of such things. It'll be interesting to hear. This is a realm of duality, and it's always good to compare, and certainly communication and dialogue are huge factors that are often ignored, or it's more miscommunication, and then things get lost in translation, as it were. Whereas it's better to maybe be honest and say, well, I feel this or I feel that, and go from there. So I say love to you all, and we'll end this Tales number 31 here until the next one.